Is Destiny of the Daleks the worst Dalek story of all time, or is it just fine? Okay, so this video is going to be an edited down review of one of my Patreon and members only Classic Who reviews. They have been taking a bit of a break recently because of the 60th anniversary specials and Christmas and stuff like that, but I plan on getting back to them very soon, probably with some episodes of Tales of the TARDIS. So if you want to see those and the unedited version of this review and other Classic Who reviews, you can find them by going on my Patreon or becoming a YouTube member, which I'll have both linked down below. But with that being said, let's get on with the review. I'm going to start off with Davros in this because obviously Davros is back. When we first see him, he's kind of just like chilling. I guess it's meant to be implied that he's chilling where they left him in Genesis, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering he was shot by the Daleks, but you know, he's just kind of chilling with like cobwebs on him, and then I think he just wakes up, but I might be wrong. I think he maybe mentioned something about his life support systems just barely keeping him alive or something like that. It is a different actor this time. In Genesis, I think it was Michael Wisher, who I think did a great job. I think it's David Goodison here as Davros, who I just don't think is as good as Davros. He's not bad or anything, but it just doesn't kind of give the same kind of vibe and performance as Michael Wisher did, and he doesn't give the same performance as Terry Malloy after him, who I also think is pretty great as Davros. And yeah, this David Goodison performance is probably my least favourite version of Davros, least favourite actor of Davros. And also, his voice isn't modulated in this one. Modulation on Davros's voice does kind of really give something else to him. It kind of makes him seem more like similar to the Daleks, I guess, but it also, just when he's like shouting with the modulated voice and stuff like that, it really adds something to it that is kind of missing when there's no voice modulation on Davros. Obviously, the Daleks are in this. You can tell they've been in storage for like 4 years or however long it's been, because they are absolutely falling apart in this episode. There's a lot of bits where, some shots where the top half will just accidentally get lifted up by the operator and stuff like that. Besides that, you know, they're the Daleks, they're doing Dalek things, and in that sense they're fine, but you can tell the props themselves have seen better days and have just been chilling in storage for multiple years since we last saw them. Another thing with the Daleks in this episode, in this story, they are referred to as robots by both the Doctor, who knows what the Daleks are and knows they aren't robots, and by Davros, who literally created the Daleks and so obviously knows what they are. That was a little bit of an oversight, I think, with the writing. It does become important later on, so I'm going to get back to this point, but it is just a little bit annoying knowing the Daleks aren't robots and hearing them be referred to as robots in the show by two characters who know the Daleks very well and know that they're not robots, one of them being the Daleks creator. It's a little bit annoying. We also have the Movellans, who are a very interesting design. Interesting that we didn't see them come back in, you know, maybe another future Dalek story. We do see them in Modern Who for a brief shot in the pilot, I believe it was. But yeah, they're a very interesting race. I think there is some good stuff you can do with them, and the design of them is pretty cool, but I do have a lot of problems with them, which I will get to later on as well. The cool reveal with these characters, with the Movellans, is they're revealed to be robots, which is a very interesting idea because it obviously explains why they need the Doctor and why the Daleks need Davros, because they're both like logical robots, even though, like I said, the Daleks aren't robots, which I'll get to. And these two robots are at war with each other. It means they've come to a logical stalemate where neither of them can win because they're both too logical at planning their battles that, you know, they both kind of just get stuck at a certain point, which the Doctor describes perfectly or demonstrates perfectly with a game of rock, paper, scissors with Romana and with the Movellans themselves. I guess with the Daleks it's more okay because I'm pretty sure it's the Dalek computer or battle computer or whatever that is the problem with this, and not necessarily the Daleks themselves. But like I said, they do refer to the Daleks as robots, so I think that is also part of the implication as to why the Daleks are making too much of a logical decision as well, because if it was just the computer that was the problem, the Daleks would obviously realise that because they're not robots. But I guess the Daleks are also quite logical in terms of how they've been genetically created, basically, so it still kind of makes sense, but it's just annoying that the characters themselves refer to the Daleks as robots when they know that they're not robots, because we know there's a living creature inside of them. I'm pretty sure that actually that's why it's another reason why it's annoying. The Doctor is walking around and he finds a dead Dalek mutant in the same story that the Daleks are referred to as robots. But yeah, there is a little bit of an annoying moment after we find out the Movellans are robots. We find out that they're being powered by these battery packs that they have on their belts, which is an interesting idea. There's got to be obviously some way to shut them down. Fair enough, that makes sense. But it's really annoying that the way that you defeat them and shut them down is this easy, because you've just got characters like the Doctor and all that just grabbing these battery packs off their belt out, and all of a sudden the Movellans just shut down, and that's it, and fall over. I do feel like it's kind of interesting and cool that they're able to like reprogram the battery pack thing to like get the Movellans to do what they want and work with them. But the fact that the battery pack is so accessible and so easy to take off, it does feel really weird and a little bit cheap. I'm pretty sure there's one scene where one of the Movellans is crawling across the floor and they accidentally like nudge the battery pack off their own belt, and that's like really kind of disappointing and cheap and seems like a little bit of an oversight. I get, like I said, they do need a way to be able to shut the Movellans down. It should have been something more difficult to achieve for the main characters rather than just taking a battery pack off their belt. Like, I guess for the Movellans themselves, they're kind of like, oh, this is only going to be a problem if they know that we're robots or whatever. It's still too easy, especially considering one of the Movellans accidentally shuts themselves down because of how easy it is to do. So I do feel like that could have been done better. Maybe like they should have been controlled from the ship or something like that. Once they find that out, they have to break into the ship and try and go in the ship's computer and control them from there, or maybe it's something inside of them so they can like take one of them apart or something like that. So overall, this story, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. It was fine, entertaining for the most part at least, but like I said, a lot of things let this one down. Daleks are falling apart in this version of Davros I just don't think is that good. The Movellans are fine, and I think the logical stalemate is like a cool concept. It just doesn't work because we know the Daleks aren't robots, and I feel like it's weird that the Doctor and Davros refer to them as robots throughout the story. I don't love this story. I don't necessarily hate this story, but I am more moving to the dislike section of the scale, if you know what I mean, for this one. So, with all that being said, is Destiny of the Daleks the worst Dalek story of all time? Probably not. Is it good? Not really. Is it fine? Probably. There's probably a few other Dalek stories out there that are worse than this one. Immediately, the ones that come to mind is probably something like Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, something like that. But ultimately, although this Dalek story isn't the best, it is ultimately just fine with a few annoying mistakes or bits in there that I'm not a big fan of. Like I said at the start of this video, if you want to watch more of these Classic Who reviews unedited, there's a few of them already on my Patreon and for YouTube members, and I will be doing some more in the future, probably starting with some Tales of the TARDIS episodes. So if you want to see those, become a patron or a member down below. And if you want to know my thoughts on what people consider not only the best Dalek story of all time, but the best Doctor Who story of all time, Genesis of the Daleks, you can watch this video here.